Welcome to the Ice Guys SBR Stanley Cup Playoffs betting show. I'm Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review. Back to look at the NHL Stanley Cup Playoffs as the conference finals start to wind down. We are pretty much down now to the last few games of this series, of both series in the East and the West. My regular co-host and colleague Andrew McInnes not available today, not with us today. He'll be back next Monday though, and next Monday's show is going to be great because the Stanley Cup Finals begin a week from today, Monday, May 29th. We are going to give you right here on the Ice Guys show in-depth Stanley Cup Finals betting preview. We're going to preview Game 1. We're going to preview the series overall. We're going to give you some different, series bets to look at, maybe some prop wagers that may be available out there for the series and for Game 1 specifically. Going to be a great show next Monday looking at the Stanley Cup Finals. So definitely want to make sure you tune in and join us for that. It should be a fantastic show, and Andrew will be back with us next week. So for today, it's the Ice Guy, not the Ice Guys. But let's get to it. We've got Game 6 coming up in both conference finals. Tonight, we've got Anaheim-Nashville, Game 6 of the Western Conference Finals. The Nashville Predators with a 3-2 series lead. One more win for Nashville, and they are in the Stanley Cup Finals for the first time in franchise history. And you better believe that city and that state of Tennessee is fired up to see this Nashville Predators team be in a Stanley Cup Finals. Like I've said before here on the show, everybody's into that team right now. To be honest with you, right now, the Tennessee Titans are number 2 in that city. That's hard to believe. Hard to believe that's the case. But right now, at least, in the short term, the Predators are the hot button team in the city of Nashville. So that just goes to show you the absolute, run that this team has gone on. They've brought everybody into it. All the country singers, you're seeing country stars there game in and game out throughout these playoffs. It's just been an incredible home atmosphere. And Nashville's played like it is an incredible home atmosphere. I mean, 10-1 for the Nashville Predators in their last 11 home playoff games. That's a very impressive record. That's a record that's going to be put to the test tonight at Bridgestone Arena as they face the Anaheim Ducks. We've got Nashville, a -145 home favorite here in game number 6. Total of 5, about -120, shaded to the over here in this game. Definitely a situation where, it's tough to bet these games in this series, especially here in Nashville, over the total. Nashville's played a lot of low-scoring games, a lot of grinders, defensive grinders, particularly here on home ice throughout the playoffs. It's been very, very tough in terms of trying to get one of these games up and over the total here in Nashville. So for that reason, I mean, it's difficult for me. As someone that usually when the total is at 5, I'll defer to the over. I'll lean to the over because I try to make a case when the total is that low. But the way Nashville has played at home in the playoffs, and many of their games have gone under, I think every game pretty much under the total with a couple of pushes in there. It's very, very difficult, in my opinion, to go over the total here in Nashville. And Nashville, to me, deserves a hell of a lot of credit. I mean, people were burying Nashville when the series was 2-2, going back to Anaheim, following the news about Ryan Johansson's season-ending injury, top-line center for the Nashville Predators. It was really hilarious, hysterical even, just to hear everybody just basically shovel dirt on the Nashville Predators' grave before the series had even ended. Like, oh, this team's done. What are they going to do without Ryan Johansson? Who's going to step up, provide supplemental secondary scoring for this hockey team? How are they going to survive from a depth perspective without Johansson on the ice? Just where are the goals going to come from? Are they going to be able to bounce back from it? Well, we saw a little something out of this Nashville team on Saturday night. We saw something real impressive out of them in terms of mental fortitude, being able to respond to adversity. And we saw something that really happens a lot in sports. NHL, NBA, college basketball. Really, when you go down and think about it, how many times in those sports in particular, hockey and basketball, have you seen a key player go down to injury? Everybody says, oh, what are they going to do without this guy? How are they going to win games? How are they going to compete? And then in that first game, that very first game, without that star player, that leader, whatever you want to call it, with that very first game they play without him, that team rallies together around it. Everybody collectively steps up Everybody does a little bit more to help contribute in a positive manner for their team, and that team, lo and behold, wins that first game without their injured star. We've seen it so many times in basketball, in NBA, in college basketball. Everybody flocks to bet against the team that suffered that big injury. Everybody. And we saw that Saturday night. Anaheim was only a minus 115, minus 120 favorite when that line opened in Game 5. They closed at minus 150, minus 155. And there were people basically running, cutting in line to bet on Anaheim and lay minus 150, a 30-cent worse line than what you could have got when it opened, just because because of the rhetoric, because of all the loud noise going on and surrounding that series and going into that game about how are the Nashville Predators going to make do without Ryan Johansson. People couldn't get enough of betting Anaheim. Couldn't get enough. They were Depeche Mode. They just can't get enough. Can't get enough. Can't get enough of the Anaheim Ducks. 30-cent move. And I, for the life of me, couldn't understand how the price could move that much. Now, I'm not trying to make it sound like Ryan Johansson's injury isn't a big deal. It is. It's top-line center, but it was an overreaction. And if you know anything about this, the situation that arises so often in hockey and basketball, even in football, when a key player goes down to injury, everybody, if you're any kind of team, and any kind of team that cares about one another, that is a team that is not a bunch of individuals, if you fit that mold, you're going to see teams in that spot step up, especially in the first game without that key player. That's exactly what we saw from the Nashville Predators in that 3-1 victory in Anaheim on Saturday night in Game 5 to take this 3-2 series lead. Everybody stepped up. Everybody played a great game. Philip Forsberg did more. How about the guy that got more minutes in that hockey game the other night? Pontus Aberg scoring the game-winning goal, too, for the Nashville Predators. That's a guy that's now playing a lot more ice time, a chance to make more of an impact for the Nashville Predators now without Ryan Johansson. He scores the game-winning goal. That is what's great about a team like Nashville. That's what's great about sports in general. When you see teams like this being counted out, what's this team ever going to do without Ryan Johansson here on the ice? Well, they did all right. Everybody did a little bit more. Anaheim, and it affects the other team too, Anaheim. They know Ryan Johansson's out for the rest of the season. Big injury for Nashville. Maybe they start thinking it's going to be a little bit easier than it might be. It's not just how it affects the team on the ice physically. It's about psychologically how that can affect a team. It's going to pump up everyone on Nashville. Hey, we can do this. We'll rally together. We can all do a little bit more. We're not dead yet. This is a conference finals. We're not going to just wilt away and die. We're going to pull our bootstraps up. Everybody's going to try to do a little bit more. And we're going to do our fucking best to win. That's all there is to it. There's no feeling sorry for ourselves. It's the conference finals. It's 2 wins away from a Stanley Cup final. It's not time to feel sorry, but what are we going to do without Ryan Johansson? And that's the attitude Nashville took going into that game, and they played great. Everybody collectively was back-checking. You saw everybody buying in defensively. They were, making it hard for Anaheim to get shots toward the net, especially from the point. They collapsed toward the net, helped out their goalie, Pekka Rinne, and Pekka Rinne deserves credit. Pekka Rinne, this has not been his best series. I think from start to finish, he had a better series against Chicago. Start to finish, he had a better series against St. Louis in terms of the way he played in net for Nashville. But one of these situations, I think, right now, where Pekka Rinne needed to be one of the best, if not the best player for Nashville in Game 5 on Saturday night, and he certainly was. Yeah, he was just absolutely outstanding in net, tracked the puck well, made acrobatic, diving, desperation saves time and time again when that puck was just rattling around in front of the goal crease. He was fantastic. He did a fantastic job for Nashville. He had to be terrific in net, and I thought he was for the Nashville Predators. And now they've got a 3-2 series lead. And now the question remains, what do we see from this Anaheim Ducks team? I'll tell you what about Anaheim. I've said all playoffs long, I think they're a little bit of an overrated commodity. I think this defense is a little bit slow afoot, especially when you get to Bieksa, especially when you get to Josh Manson. Some of these guys at the back end of that blue line, not the great skaters. Montour can skate. He's a very good skater. Manson, not so much. Bieksa, not so much. They're physical. They bring that to the table. But you can beat them with speed at times. And I think Nashville's been able to do that at times. And Nashville now returns home. Again, they've won 10 of their last 11 home playoff games. But here we go again with the zigzag theory, and the zigzag theory's been out in full force here in this Western Conference Final Series. Nashville has won Game 1, Game 3, and Game 5. Anaheim has won Game 2 and Game 4. This is an even-numbered game. That tells you, zigzag theory-wise, from that perspective, this is Anaheim's game to win. This is Anaheim's spot tonight. And they're catching, obviously, plus 125 in this game as an underdog. And I can understand why that's appealing. I certainly wouldn't talk anyone out of making that bet. But I've thought from the beginning of this series, Nashville would have a very good chance to win it. Was I concerned initially about the Johansson injury? Yeah, because how is this team going to respond to it? If this team has the toughness mentally that I think they do, then I thought that they were going to respond to it very well. And they did. And now because of that, I think we've got a situation here where even without Johansson, I think it's going to be tough for Anaheim to string 2 wins together against Nashville, even if they win Game 6 tonight on the road. That building's going to be just absolutely flying in Music City. They're going to be going nuts. I mean, tonight, this is a chance to go to the Stanley Cup Final for the very first time in Nashville Predators history. It's going to be a fantastic game. I don't have a strong opinion on it from a betting perspective. I'll tell you that right now. The 10-1 at home in the last 11 home playoff games, that is a very difficult track record to go against. But at the same time, I'm not in love with fading Nashville. I mean, that's a team that I've been backing in several games in this series. I've been able to do it for the most part successfully. And I think Anaheim does have concerns matching up speed-wise with Nashville. And John Gibson's got to bring his game to yet another level. He's done it at times. I think he's got to play a little bit better. And Anaheim, too, with the penalties. Again, we saw the penalties rear their ugly head for Anaheim in the last game, and it reared their ugly head in Game 4 when they won in overtime. It almost cost them. It's what allowed Nashville to come back from 2-0 down and tie that game. Too many penalties in the third period. That could, at some point tonight, Game 7 of this series, if there is one, if they somehow come back and escape and go to a cup final, this problem with taking so many undisciplined, silly, mental blunder penalties, it's going to come back and hurt Anaheim at some point. You just can't take the number of penalties they've taken and expect to win games and hold on to leads. It just doesn't happen. You're facing good teams that are too good, teams that, for the most part, have very good power plays. Most of the teams that are left in the Stanley Cup playoffs, maybe outside of Ottawa, have a very good power play. So you got to be careful with how many penalties you've taken. Anaheim has really had a problem in all 3 series so far this year in the playoffs, just taking way too many penalties. We'll see if they're able to correct that here in this game and moving forward. I will say, I will give you one bet that kind of interests me because the last time Anaheim had lost a game and then they were playing in Nashville was Game 4. And boy, they came out with the right attitude. I think they were outshot Nashville 14-2 in that first period of Game 4. Took a 1-0 lead. Probably could have been worse if not for Pekka Rinne. I mean, it was just a fantastic effort by Anaheim in that first period of Game 4 in this building. You might see that again from Anaheim tonight because they're going to be desperate. This is still a veteran-laden team with Getzlaf and Perry and Kessler. A lot of veterans on this team. BX is a veteran. Vatanen's been around for a while now. This is still a group that knows that their backs are against the wall. And if they come out like it tonight and maybe carry the play against Nashville in the first period tonight, it wouldn't surprise me. So I don't know if I love Anaheim for the game because we've seen them. We saw in Game 4, no lead was safe. Nashville came back, tied it before losing in overtime. Anaheim for the first period might be a bet worth making tonight in this game. Anaheim, first period, you get a plus price on that because that this is a elimination game for them. There's no tomorrow. They have to win. They have to come out with that sense of urgency, have to come out with that sense of desperation. And they proved in Game 4 in Nashville in a first period that they could dominate. 1-0 lead and a 14-2 shot advantage for Anaheim. First period of Game 4 here in Nashville. Maybe you have a chance to see something like that again. So, if you like Anaheim for the full game, don't I'm not going to talk you out of it. Believe me, no. There's cases to be made for Anaheim for sure, especially when they're getting a plus price, backs against the wall. In a series that's been a zigzag series where you want to bet on the team that lost the last game. But first period, in particular, on Anaheim might be even a better way to look, just because you know that you've got that sense that they have to come out of the gate strong. They have to try to get a lead, and Anaheim's much better playing with a lead, than playing from behind. This is not the greatest come from behind team or play from behind team. They are better with a lead, and I think Anaheim, it would behoove them to get that lead here in this game tonight. We'll see. So I lean a little bit to Anaheim first period. If I had to give maybe what I consider my strongest betting recommendation on this game. I personally am not involved in this game. I didn't bet the total. I didn't bet the side, but I'll give you a little lean toward first period on Anaheim. They are the team needing to win this game to stay alive. We'll see if they come out and play like it. Should be good, though. We'll see if Nashville can get it done in front of that raucous home environment. All right, tomorrow we've got the Eastern Conference Finals taking center stage. Game 6 between the Ottawa Senators and the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Pittsburgh Penguins, here's another public narrative that's totally changed and totally flipped after 2 games. Pittsburgh was down 2-1 in this series after Game 3. They had just suffered a 5-1 loss to the Ottawa Senators in Game 3. They got behind 4-0. Marc-Andre Fleury was chased from the game. What's wrong with Pittsburgh? What's wrong with Fleury? Who's Mike Sullivan going to go with in net for the rest of this series? All of that talk was stemming from that Game 3 loss for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And it was just basically ad nauseum, really, that Pittsburgh was in trouble, with the injuries on the blue line, although they did get Trevor Daley back in that game. Justin Schultz is still out. Of course, Chris Letang ain't coming back. All kinds of talk that Pittsburgh was in serious trouble following Game 3 of that series. Now look where we are just a few days later. Game 4, Pittsburgh responds like a team that won a Stanley Cup last year. Like a team like that you would expect to respond in that fashion, and they did. I know they only won 3-2 in that Game 4 in Ottawa, but they were up 3-0. They had the better of the play for extended stretches. There's no question about that. And they were able to get the win. Matt Murray, Mike Sullivan rolling the dice, going with his gut instinct, saying, I'm going to go with Matt Murray. Kind of a tough break for Marc-Andre Fleury, if you ask me. I'm not saying it was a good or bad decision. Obviously, it's worked out because with Matt Murray in net, Pittsburgh's won the last 2 games. But tough if you're Marc-Andre Fleury. I mean, you played fantastic late in the regular season. You played great in the Columbus series. You played even better than that against Washington. Like, you could make a serious argument. Pittsburgh's not in the Eastern Conference Finals unless Marc-Andre Fleury plays out of his skull against Washington. And he did. He was fantastic. Washington outshot Pittsburgh in a lot of games in that series. Just couldn't bury it past Fleury half the time. He played so well in that series. He played pretty well for most of this Ottawa series up until Game 3. And then the roof caves in, and it's not all his fault. I mean, there was a bank shot that went in, a screen shot, a rebound that went in. The team was awful in front of Marc-Andre Fleury in Game 3. And just after that one little segment of time, that 10-minute swatch where Ottawa goes up 4-0, just because of that little 10-minute period of time, Marc-Andre Fleury has essentially lost the crease to Matt Murray. That's tough. That's tough. I mean, that's really unfortunate. Can you imagine if I get fired from Sports Memo just because of an 0-2 day? Oh, you know what, Ian? You hit 60% for the last 3 months with your plays. You went 0-2 today. Sorry. You've lost your spot on our handicapping roster. We're going with someone else. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine that? I mean, that kind of sounds like what happened with Marc-Andre Fleury here. He plays great all playoffs, doing great long term. Oh, yeah, a bad 10 minutes in Game 3, 4-0 down. Ottawa came at us, buzzing. Fleury couldn't make a save, although the teammates in front of me played like dopes. And now all of a sudden, I've lost my starting goaltending spot, and Matt Murray's in net now. That's tough. You got to admit, that's tough. But having said that, Matt Murray's played great. And Mike Sullivan's gut instinct, whether it's fair or unfair to Marc-Andre Fleury in the end, regardless of what you think of that, Matt Murray's played great in 2 games for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and he's made Mike Sullivan look like a smart coach because of it. And now you envision a scenario where you probably think Matt Murray is probably the goalie now for Pittsburgh for the rest of these playoffs, unless he stumbles again. So that's too bad if you're Marc-Andre Fleury. Tough break. Played so good. A bad 10 minutes for not so much him, but the entire team in that Game 3, and he may not get another start here in net in these playoffs for Pittsburgh. That's tough. But getting back to Game 6, there's 2 schools of thought here going into this game. You could make the thought that Pittsburgh's got all the momentum in the world now. 2 straight wins, 7-0 win in Game 5 at home on Sunday. That Ottawa just can't get the momentum back, that they're shot, they're done, they're spent. They've got nothing physically or mentally left to give the Ottawa Senators. You could make that argument, yes. 7-0 yesterday was a complete tap dance by the Pittsburgh Penguins on the Ottawa Senators' faces. That's exactly what it was Sunday. Nobody on the Ottawa Senators played a good game. Goaltender out. Craig Anderson was awful. The defensemen in front of him were even worse. Even worse. Yeah, Anderson was not good. His defensemen were deplorable Sunday in that game. Could you control a puck, for crying out loud? Could you handle a puck with your stick in the proper manner? Could you do that? Could you do that? They couldn't. Nobody could. Dion Phaneuf, Carlson had a terrible period, fumbling pucks in their own zone, turning over pucks in their own zone relentlessly, failing to clear the puck out of their own zone time and time and time again in that first period on Sunday in Pittsburgh. It was just to be honest with you, it was a demonstration what not to do as an NHL defenseman. That's what Ottawa showed you in Game 1 on Sunday. You know, they I don't know if it was tight. I don't know if it was being jittery. I don't know if it was just Ottawa just having a shit game. Maybe all kinds of things, maybe all of the above. But to see the defensemen just simple breakouts with the puck in their own zone, they couldn't do it. They got hemmed in, turned the puck over, couldn't clear it out half the time. It's exactly what caused the 3rd Pittsburgh goal in that game. Bad line changes. The goaltender wasn't good. They weren't generating much in terms of forecheck in the Pittsburgh zone. There is not a single Pittsburgh or Ottawa Senator rather that played well on Sunday. Not a one. That obviously, when you lose 7-0, that's a complete team failure, top to bottom. Goaltender out. Everybody's at fault. Everybody. Now the question is Ottawa shot physically? Because remember, their captain, Erik Karlsson, playing through 2 hairline fractures. And by the way, props to Guy Boucher, head coach of the Ottawa Senators, took Erik Karlsson out of that game early in the second period. Bravo to him. That's the right call. You're not winning that game. You're getting destroyed. You're getting your ass handed to you. You've got bigger things ahead. You've got a Game 6 now and an elimination must-win game coming up Tuesday night. Save Erik Karlsson. Give him as much rest. Give him as much time off his feet as possible. I completely 1,000% agree with how Guy Boucher managed his bench in Game 5 on Sunday. So, I think it's a situation where you've got Ottawa doing the right thing there. Give Erik Karlsson his rest. Get him ready for Game 6. The case to be made for Ottawa here, guys, in Game 6, they haven't lost 3 playoff games in a row so far in this postseason. Longest losing streak they've had is 2 games. We've seen them respond to adversity before in these playoffs. Remember, Rangers were down 2-0 in their series, tied that series at 2, and Ottawa just responded with 2 straight wins after that when it looked like the momentum was on the Rangers side. I don't believe in momentum carrying over. If Pittsburgh beats Ottawa in Game 6 Tuesday night, it's because of the better team. It's got nothing to do with, they had the momentum. Did the momentum matter for the Cleveland Cavaliers in Game 3 last night against Boston? Did it matter? What momentum? There's no momentum game to game. Or very rarely is there momentum game to game in the playoffs. Look what Boston Celtics did last night. If momentum meant a damn, if it meant a damn thing, the Boston Celtics don't win that game last night. Because if momentum means everything, you don't come back from getting blown out by over 40 points at home and then going on the road against Cleveland and winning that game. So, momentum, you got to be careful in saying, oh, they've got the momentum and using that as a reason for a bet or a wager or an opinion in the playoffs. These are individual game entities, all of them, game to game. The question is for Ottawa, do they have the resilience in them to respond one more time? That is the ultimate question here in this game and in this series. I will say this. I do think from a price standpoint for Game 6, we've got Pittsburgh, last I looked, minus 150 road favorite. That's a little bit of an overreaction to me. It is a little bit. I mean, Ottawa plus 130 home underdog. I definitely understand the fact that we've got a Pittsburgh team that's found their offense. And let's not undersell how big of an impact Trevor Daley has made since coming back from injury for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's played 3 games. They lost the first game with him back, but he was just getting his sea legs under him. He had been out for a while. And then in 2 games after that, Pittsburgh wins them. Trevor Daley gives them another puck mover from the back end. He moves the puck extremely well, can play on the power play, helps Pittsburgh's transition game, and that is where Pittsburgh is so dangerous. Their transition game is fantastic. When everybody's healthy and all the personnel is on deck, there is no team better at transitioning the puck from a defensive position to an offensive position up the ice better than the Pittsburgh Penguins. They're fantastic at it. That's why so many of their goals are off rush scoring chances, because their transition game is absolutely lethal. It's fantastic. Their puck movement and getting north and south up the ice is as good or better than anybody else in the NHL. That's the way it is. But, it's a situation where Pittsburgh's got their offense in gear now. Pittsburgh was searching for offensive confidence in this series in the first 3 games. They didn't have any. Their power play was awful. Craig Anderson was in their head. He was stopping everything. Now, all of a sudden, Pittsburgh scores 3 goals in Game 4, 7 goals in Game 5, 10 goals in the last 2 games combined. They've got their confidence, and that's a dangerous, scary thing for the Ottawa Senators. There's no question about that. That being said, Ottawa does have a better game in them than Sunday. They do. Because outside of that 7-0 game, Pittsburgh's other 2 wins in the series were 1-0 and 3-2. They were tight, close, hang on by your fingernails victories for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Not dominant by any stretch of the imagination. Pittsburgh, Ottawa rather, I think has the character and the resilience and the gumption and the grit and the stick-to-itiveness to bounce back from a loss like that. I'm not going to say they win tomorrow night, Ottawa, because Pittsburgh's found their game in terms of offense and their power play starting to click. I mean, look at their power play the last 2 games. 4 for 5. 4 for 5, 80% efficiency for the Pittsburgh Penguins with the power play in the last 2 games of this series. That's extremely impressive, and that's something that Ottawa can't compete with. Look at Ottawa's power play, how bad it's been. Ottawa's power play has been awful. They've gone 10 straight games now, Ottawa, without a power play goal. 10 straight games. I mean, if it's a battle of special teams, you got to give the edge to Pittsburgh. I will say Ottawa's going to be in that game tomorrow night, Game 6, Tuesday night. It's going to be a competitive game. They're going to play a lot better. They're at home, backs against the wall. Should be fascinating to see how they respond. I think they respond in a good way. I think they give Pittsburgh a game. Is it enough to win or lose? We'll see. But I do like something in this game in terms of from a betting perspective, and it's going to transition us right into the best bet segment to wrap up this edition of the Ice Guys. Again, it's just me flying solo this week. Andrew will be back next week when we preview the Stanley Cup Finals. He'll be back with me as co-host. But I think we've got a good bet here in this game in terms of the total. 2 of the last 3 games have gone over with 1 push. Like I said, Pittsburgh's found their offense. Trevor Daley being on the ice has meant everything in this series in terms of getting Pittsburgh more offensive confidence. And I should point out, too, there's another guy that made a difference on Sunday, Brian Rust. Brian Rust's one of those depth forwards. He's not going to move the needle. If he's in or out of the lineup, there's not going to be people flocking to the Sportsbook to bet on or against Pittsburgh because Brian Rust's out. It's just not the way. Joe Public hockey bettor is not doing that. He's not moving the needle, Brian Rust. But Brian Rust is an impactful player that can make a difference for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Great speed, forechecking ability, has a little bit of a physical presence, goes to the tougher areas of the ice to get scoring chances and to score his goals. It's a situation where he does make a difference for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and having him back on Sunday in Game 5 of this series was a big deal. Now there's chance, too, that Hornquist, upper body injury, there's a chance at least he might return for Pittsburgh in Game 6. I don't want to say Pittsburgh has solved Ottawa defensively, but they've got confidence now. And for Ottawa, this is a throw everything but the kitchen sink, at Pittsburgh. You're facing elimination here in Game 6 on home ice. You've probably got to do everything that you can in order to stay alive. And if Pittsburgh gets that first goal, as they have the last 2 games of this series, that takes Ottawa completely out of that 1-3-1 trap that they like to employ. You can't do that when you're trailing, and you especially can't do that when you're trailing in an elimination game, in a game that you have to win, stay alive. So if Pittsburgh gets that first goal, and again, they've scored now the first goal in each of the last 2 games now, that's going to have to open up this game a little bit. And let's not forget, we're dealing with a total of 5 in an elimination game. And if Pittsburgh's leading, 2-1 late or 3-1 late, you're going to see Ottawa obviously have to pull the goalie, and they might even do it earlier because it's an elimination game. They have to win. They have to give themselves enough time to put the puck in the net. And that benefits you from a totals perspective. If you're on the over, you could get it 1, or even I've seen it sometimes 2 cheap empty net goals to aid your cause. There's no question about that. But there's so many variables with the side. I'm certainly leaning at the plus price with Ottawa as a home dog. I think that's an overreaction now. Pittsburgh's, was laying, just think a bit about it from a value perspective. Pittsburgh in Game 3 and Game 4 in Ottawa was -115, -120 in that range. Now they're suddenly -150. That's not value. That's not value. Good on you if you want to bet Pittsburgh in Game 6 on the road. That's not value. Just like it wasn't value on Saturday night, Game 5, for the Anaheim Ducks at home laying -150 when people were pummeling that line up 30 cents in a clear overreaction to the Ryan Johansson injury. That's not value with Pittsburgh -150. You can bet it, but that's not penultimate value. We're now seeing that tax, that overreaction, that narrative now that Ottawa's done, that they can't compete after that 7-0 loss Sunday in Pittsburgh. So from a value perspective, Ottawa's the value side in Game 6 at home. It's just a matter of, do you believe in them being able to rally the troops, get back on the saddle, and win an elimination game at home? I'm going to go with the total, though, for best bet for the Ice Guys show this week. Like I said, when you've got a 5 in an elimination game, you've got an aggressive mindset from the team facing an elimination because they have to win. They got to throw everything they have at the other team. Pittsburgh's certainly not going to sit back. That's not the way they play. They're always attack-minded. They're always aggressive. And in the last 3 games of this series, we've seen 6, we've seen 5, and we've seen 7 goals. Things have opened up, and that's not a surprise. Sometimes as the series goes along, we start to see the offenses come alive now. There's not as much to figure out or solve defensively. You know what kind of defense you're going to see, what kind of goaltending you're going to see from Murray and Anderson, what their tendencies are. Quality shooters, like what a lot of these teams have, especially Pittsburgh, they're able to adapt and basically adjust to the defense and the goaltending they see the longer the series goes on as they see more of it. And I think that's what we're seeing here in this particular game here on Tuesday night in Game 6. So you got a little juice here with this total. It's 5. Over is at -140. But in a slate where we've got really slim pickings, as far as I'm concerned, from a side and total perspective, in both of these game sixes in the West and the East, I don't have strong opinions, but we want to give you something here for best bet, and I think this is one of the better ones that, from a positive expectation standpoint, I have that for this particular wager. We're going to go with Pittsburgh, Ottawa, over 5, minus 140, game 6 on Tuesday night, May the 23rd. Again, if Pittsburgh scores the first goal like they have the first 2 games, Ottawa cannot sit back. They cannot defend. They cannot play the trap like they like to. And that's going to open up the game entirely. And again, Pittsburgh's offense has come alive. Like we've seen it. 10 goals in the last 2 games, 4 for 5 on the power play. I would rather take my chances, not say guessing, but I know Ottawa will play much better. They will. I'm confident in that. They will play much better than they did on Sunday. Will it be enough to win or lose? Who knows? But I do think they'll be better offensively. But on the flip side, you can't understate how big of a return Trevor Daley has been here for the Pittsburgh Penguins in this series. Since getting him back, the 3 games, their offense is starting to come alive. Brian Rust is back. They could get Patrick Hornquist back, another offensive weapon. He's a guy that gives opposing goaltenders grief. He stands in front of the net, causes havoc, creates traffic, vision problems for the goalie, the whole bit. Having him back would be even bigger. So I think we've got a recipe to at least get 5 goals scored in this game, if not more. I think we've got a good chance of that here, especially in an elimination game. Because like I said, if Ottawa's behind in the third period, they're pulling the goalie, and they're probably doing it even earlier than they normally would. Because it's all hands on deck in a game they have to win in order to stay alive. So best bet for the Ice Guys show for this week, we're going to go over 5, minus 140, Ottawa, Pittsburgh, game number 6, Eastern Conference Finals, Tuesday night. And like I said, going back to the West game, if I had to give my strongest lean right now in that game, I think a first period wager on Anaheim makes a lot of sense. They're facing elimination. They have to come out with a sense of urgency. And the last time they were in this build in Nashville off a loss, 1-0 after the first period for Anaheim, and they outshot Nashville 14-2 in the first period. Came out with that right mindset. So I think they've got a chance, at least Anaheim, to do that again here in this game. I definitely prefer Anaheim first period than I do the full game, because we've seen it. And Nashville does get stronger, especially at home as the game goes on. Anaheim penalty troubles in the second and third period, especially in the third period, has been a major problem for them, major theme for them in every series, the Calgary series, the Edmonton series, and now here in the Nashville series. Penalty problems late in the games have hurt this Anaheim team. That's why I think Nashville could fall behind early, but they're not dead if they do, because of these Anaheim discipline issues. So it's going to be interesting to see. And again, we've got a situation here where we've got 2 series that I think we got a chance to see games. I think we're going to get a game 7 out of one of these series. We'll see which one we do. But I think we've got a couple good games on deck. Nashville deserves a ton of credit. Ryan Johansson out, no problem. This Pontus Åberg scores the game-winning goal the other night. Fantastic story for Nashville, and we'll see if they're able to close it out. If not tonight, in Game 7 on Wednesday night. So again, best bet to recap, Ottawa-Pittsburgh over 5 Tuesday night in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals. All right, that is going to be our show for today, for this week, I should say. My co-host Andrew McInnes will be back with me next Monday, May 29th. That's going to be a fun show. We're going to do all kinds of fun stuff next week, because the finals start next Monday. We're going to do a full series preview, Game 1 preview. We're going to break down the Stanley Cup Finals next Monday here on the Ice Guys in every way, shape, or form you can imagine. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you, by the way, everyone, for tuning in. I see a lot of good activity going on here in the chat box, in the chat room here. Fantastic. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it, because you guys are making these shows go. Your viewership, your support, and not only your support of this show, all the shows at SBR, and your support of Sportsbook Review in general is what keeps everything going, keeps this ship steering in the right direction. So thanks again for tuning in. Join us again next Monday, May 29th, as we preview the Stanley Cup Finals from a betting perspective. I'm Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review. That wraps up our show for today. Until next Monday, enjoy the Stanley Cup playoffs and good luck.